Picture this. It's the 1990s. We're in a New York City courtroom, and the kid on trial for felony murder is only 16 years old. His name is Steve Harmon. Now, Steve's a filmmaker. He's used to being the one behind the camera, telling the story. But now, the camera's turned on him, and a story is being told about him. And his entire life depends on which version of that story the jury decides is the truth.
And those are Steve's own words, straight from his journal as he lies on his prison cot. I mean, the stakes could not be any higher. This isn't just some abstract legal case for him. This is a fight for the future he thought he had, for the life he remembers. Everything, absolutely everything, is on the line.
All right, so back in the courtroom, the prosecution gets things rolling. They need to build their case piece by piece to convince the jury that their version of events is the right one. And they start with someone who is actually there, an eyewitness.
So taking the stand is Mrs. Laurel Henry. She's a retired librarian, a grandmother. You can tell she's nervous, but she's speaking very clearly. She explains that she was in that drugstore back on December 22nd, the day everything went down, simply because she needed to pick up some medicine for her sick granddaughter.
The prosecutor asks her, "Do you see anyone in this room that you saw in the store that day?" And without missing a beat, she points directly at James King, the other guy on trial with Steve. She says he was one of two men she saw arguing. But here's the crucial part. Notice who she doesn't point to. She never, not once, says she saw Steve Harmon.
Okay, so now it's the defense's turn to talk. James King's lawyer, a guy named Briggs, gets up. And his job, his only job right now, is to poke holes in her story. He needs to plant a seed of reasonable doubt in the jury's mind about how sure she really is.
And Briggs starts to pick apart how she identified King. See, it wasn't a simple, clean moment. First, the robbery happens. Then, later, the police show up at her house with dozens of photos. And it's only after she sees his picture that she goes to a police station and picks him out of a physical lineup. Briggs is basically asking the jury, did she remember his face from the store, or did she just remember his face from the photograph?
And then Briggs drops this little detail. That lineup, the one that could send a man to prison for the rest of his life, it only had 6 people in it. Just 6. After already seeing his photo, you have to wonder, how hard would it be to pick a now familiar face from such a small group?
Briggs keeps pushing, and he brings up something she said before. And this is where we see her start to crack a little. She admits, I have trouble testifying against a black man. And then her confidence just seems to dissolve. She doesn't say, I know. She says, I think I'm doing the right thing. I think I'm identifying the right man. That one word, think, just hangs there in the courtroom. And for a jury, thinking someone is guilty might not be enough.
So just as the jury is mulling over all that uncertainty, the prosecution calls its next witness. And this is their star player. This isn't some innocent bystander. No, this is a man who openly admits he was part of the crime. And his story is about to change everything for Steve Harmon.
In walks Richard Bobo Evans. And let me tell you, he looks the part. He's a big guy, and he's wearing a wrinkled orange prison jumpsuit because he actually refused to put on a suit for the court. He's not here to do his civic duty. He's here because he made a deal with the prosecutors to get a lighter sentence. He's here to save himself. Right away, the prosecutor has Bobo list his criminal record. And it is long. Selling drugs, B&E, grand theft auto. He even has a manslaughter charge on there. The prosecution is putting all their cards on the table, basically saying to the jury, look, we know this guy is a career criminal. We're not hiding it. But you still need to hear what he has to say.
And then Bobo tells his story. He lays out the entire plan. According to him, Steve Harmon's role was simple but critical. He was the lookout. He was supposed to go into the drugstore first, check if any cops were inside, and then give the all-clear signal by just walking back out. Bobo says once Steve gave that signal, he and King went in. The robbery went sideways, the owner, Mr. Nesbitt, was shot, and they ran. This is the first time anyone has directly and devastatingly tied Steve to this crime.
The prosecution finishes with Bobo. And now it's time for Steve's lawyer, Kathy O'Brien. Her whole vibe is the complete opposite of Briggs. She's not loud, she's calm, she's precise. She's about to take a scalpel to Bobo's story. And O'Brien's approach is just, well, it's brilliant. She doesn't shout or argue. She just asks these simple, quiet questions that completely expose the giant holes in his story. She asks, when did you and Mr. Harmon actually talk about this plan? Bobo has to admit, I didn't. She asks what the signal was supposed to be if there were cops in the store. Bobo's answer, I don't know. She gets him to admit he never spoke to Steve before, never spoke to him after, and never gave him a single dollar from the robbery. Suddenly, this whole story starts to feel like it's made of smoke. Then O'Brien lands the biggest blow. She looks right at him and asks, "Are you sure you were there?" She's suggesting his entire story might just be a collection of details that the police and James King told him. I mean, his deal depends on him being a valuable witness, right? So of course he has to say he was there. But O'Brien has made the jury ask themselves, is he telling the truth or just the story he needs to tell to get out of jail soon?
After O'Brien is done, the prosecutor has no one else to call, no more evidence to show. And with that, the focus of the story shifts. It pivots from the cold, hard arguments of the courtroom to the crushing personal reality for the 16-year-old kid sitting right in the middle of it all.
2 words. The people rest. That's it. The prosecution's case against Steve Harmon is officially over. They've said everything they're going to say. And now, the weight of every accusation, every piece of testimony, it all comes crashing down right on Steve's shoulders.
And we get a glimpse of just how heavy that weight is from his own journal. He writes, "The trouble I'm in keeps looking bigger and bigger. I'm overwhelmed by it. It's crushing me." This is that raw, real fear of a teenager who just listened to a man implicate him in a murder. The legal arguments are one thing, but the emotional reality of it, that's something else entirely.
Now, here's why this is so absolutely terrifying for Steve. It's because of a legal rule called felony murder. And you really have to get this. It means that even if Steve never touched the gun, never intended for anyone to get hurt, it doesn't matter. All the prosecution has to prove is that he was part of the robbery, even just as the lookout. And if the jury believes that, under this law, he's just as guilty of murder as the person who actually pulled the trigger.
So tomorrow, Steve's lawyer gets her chance to fight back. But for now, this is where we're left. We've heard from a nervous eyewitness who couldn't identify Steve. We've heard a detailed story from a career criminal who's trying to get a deal. And we've watched that story get picked apart. So the question that's just hanging over everything is, what is the truth here? Is it what someone thinks they saw, what someone else says to save their own skin? Or is it something else completely?